team, family. We talk about the power of vulnerability today. As a concept, getting into some stories from our own experience, sharing really pragmatic ideas as well. Lots of takeaways in this one.
Yeah, this was an episode that really hits home for me. I found this to be one of the most pivotal topics in my entire life. And if you're going to listen to an episode, this is one to dig into. This is the gold.
Yeah, it's gold. I said it multiple times. Stay tuned. That my eyes were coated with tears of gratitude and recognition. So have a listen. We love you all. Thank you for being with us.
Melanie Curtis, Jason Maletsky. Big goals, deep work. Love, fear. Being human. Learning to live in alignment with our values. On the path to our full potential. Trust the journey.
I think today's topic is the single most powerful lesson that I have taken away from this show.
Oh, that makes me want to cry immediately.
We are 10 seconds into the episode and Melanie is crying.
I'm already crying.
Yeah.
No, it's so important and beautiful and wonderful and such a gift. That's what I mean. It's wonderful that that's true.
Yeah. And I really mean it. I think when we put vulnerability in our list of values, along with authenticity and, embodying that on a regular basis with consistency and having a place to do that is a safe place to just be vulnerable self.
Yeah.
It's transformed my life. It's been the most impactful thing that I have taken away from the Trust the Journey process.
I love that so much, so much. I completely echo that in the sense that not that I didn't have experience, quote unquote, being vulnerable in my public sharing before Trust the Journey. I did, but it took it to the next level. You know what I mean? In a beautiful way, in a way that feels like real service, both to me as an individual human being and to other people listening. And I consistently still, as part of being committed to vulnerability as my own healing and a high level of service, I have to still consistently think about, think is probably the wrong word, but rest into it, almost remind myself, because it's so easy to be autopilot, have it together, how are you doing? Good versus how you doing? How am I actually doing? And taking a moment to really be with ourselves and say what's true, whether it's good or bad.
That right there, what you just said, the default American greeting, how you doing? Good, fine, okay, whatever, the default response, which devalues the question of how are you actually doing it. With that default response of I'm disregarding how I'm actually doing, it actually removes the value to ourselves of how we feel about ourselves, and we put ourselves kind of second or third or last as a result. And with that, there becomes this kind of I don't matter kind of feeling, right? Like deeper down, we don't think the person asking actually cares enough to actually give them an answer.
Yeah.
Right? Or we're afraid that if we actually give them the answer that we really feel, like how we really are, that they're either going to reject us or they're going to be put off in some way by giving an authentic response, the vulnerable response. But this was a huge tipping point in my life, is I started taking that question seriously every time somebody asked me whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
And answering back with how I'm really doing. And sometimes it would kind of startle people where they stop in their tracks and they're like, wasn't expecting a real answer. I was expecting you to just say good and keep walking, so we didn't really have to interact or connect. But now you're telling me that you're sad because your dog died, and and you're trying to, and now we have a real thing. I have to pause my busy to actually be here with you because you're being authentic and vulnerable with me.
Yeah.
And it's an ask, right? It's an ask. And so,
yeah,
it's an interesting thing.
It's totally reasonable and understandable also to have that concern when we are. I love that as a suggestion, as a practice that any one of us listening, me too, can take away from this conversation and go, yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to think about genuinely and do my best to commit to and follow through on answering how you doing with what's actually true for me in that moment. Cool. I love that just as a very actionable thing. And I want to validate the fear and the anxiety, the nervousness, the uncertainty that comes up around the idea of doing it. Even if you're just worried you will create an awkward exchange,
Totally.
is enough to sort of temper a person's desire to, quote unquote, be vulnerable or tell the truth, as it were.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to validate that too. But yeah, go ahead.
The other part of that is if there's like an expectation that you have to, right? If somebody says, how you doing? And I'm like, I don't really feel like connecting right now, or this particular person isn't somebody that I really want to share or be vulnerable with, then that if this is like, the kind of the standard that we're expected to share, that can also be very scary or undesirable. Like there's lots of people that ask me how I'm doing, and I don't really want to tell them, what I'm really feeling, or because that's just not where I'm at in my life or that day, or, whatever that circumstance.
If people have not looked up Brené Brown's work, we've mentioned her on the podcast many times.
Yeah.
She is a phenomenal human being. She is a sociologist, a researcher. She is also a speaker, and she did a couple of TED Talks that have gazillion views. But the first one she ever did, she was not a famous person at the time. She did her first TED Talk talking about the power of vulnerability. It was so unbelievably resonant for people to start to look at this as a concept. I really encourage everyone to look her stuff up. The TED Talk is like 16 minutes or something, so it's not a big list to dig into this topic and this concept more. Because again, I think about it, you just expressed it as being one of the greatest gifts you've ever received, right? And I could pull countless of examples of it too, where I'm like, when that person held space for me to be real, to be messy, to be upset, and even to be joyful and talking a fucking mile a minute, if that's what's true, right?
Totally.
It can be either way, and both are vulnerable, right? Both are vulnerable in their own tone. And so anyway, I point to that because, having a commitment to doing it, and the reason I brought up Brené is to build on what you shared about, is not everyone deserves or is a space where we are safe to be vulnerable at a level that we are practicing, right? And so that is totally legit. Not everyone gets our vulnerability. It doesn't mean we're being inauthentic. We are just simply in ourselves making a decision we're sharing to this depth. That's it.
Yeah.
That's allowed at any point, ever, always, forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. There's another big piece of this topic that I feel specifically as a man is that in the era that I grew up in, we were taught that vulnerability means weakness. That these two things correlate. That if you're vulnerable, it means where this is your weakness, right? It's your vulnerability. It's where people can get to you. So it's the soft spot, the underbelly, the Achilles heel, the spot where people can hurt you, right? So the idea of being vulnerable, it means weakness, right? And that is actually an untruth. It's a falsehood, right? It is not true. Vulnerability is actually a strength, and it actually creates trust.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. That's another thing, building on Brené's work. And one of her lines of what I was talking about just now is, not every person has earned the right to hear your story. And so that's okay. So just take that and apply it how you will. But the notion of vulnerability being a strength, and you show me someone being vulnerable, and you show me someone who is not being courageous. Like, vulnerability and courage are forever connected, because that is, by definition, vulnerability puts us in a place where we need to be brave, right? To overcome this being seen, this being known, this risk of rejection, this risk of humiliation, this risk of whatever, not being held, not being unsafe in whatever way that might feel scary to us. It's a thing. I am so into this topic also because of how it liberates us. Like, when we find those safe spaces, those safe people, and we start to step into the actual skill set and practice of, quote unquote, being vulnerable, wherever the fuck that means, right? And I'm saying this with such passion because it's so good, right? It makes me think of the Trust the Journey integration circles, where and I'm not trying to promote that. I'm just saying it like that's an example of a place where we all show up, us included, myself included, and we are in the practice of being vulnerably seen. It's like amazing. Anyway, I digress.
No, you're on point. The whole piece of bravery and courage, those are two very powerful words. Those are words that garner respect in the English language and in the Western world and in much of the world, right? Bravery and courage. You go to any child's story book, and bravery and courage are like, they're moral values that are held with high esteem. And linking that to vulnerability is just like the power triad, right? To really understand that, like, oh, okay, if I'm brave enough or if I'm courageous enough to actually show who I really am and share how I'm really feeling and talk about the reality of what's going on, then what I get back in response to that is a true response. I get what the person's reaction to that is, how they actually relate, rather than, say, an automated reply or like a recorded kind of, systemic thing where you just say, yep, good, and there's no real depth of connection. And that truthful reply, that truthful connection, right? That creates the bridge, and it allows other people to feel safe in their ability to drop some of their guard, be a little brave or courageous on their side, and be able to offer back some of their own vulnerability. And all of this takes down the wall in between us. And I'm going to go back to my own childhood for a minute here. And I'm a child of the early 70s, and growing up in my teenage years, I would say one of probably the most influential rock band that was in my life was Pink Floyd, right? And the movie, The Wall, and the album, The Wall, is actually one of the first places where I did like deep meditation. I didn't even know I was doing it at the time. I would lay down on the floor. I'd lay my speakers on either side of me, on their sides, on the right, I'd lie right between them, and listen to that whole album. And the movie, it's called The Wall for a reason. It's about the barrier that we build in between ourselves and ourselves, right? Because in the movie, it portrays the main character, and it kind of locks away this like broken childhood doll reference to himself, and himself is locked in behind the wall, and it can't get to his mother's love, and it can't get to his father's respect, and it can't get to any friends, and it can't get to any and it's just this like locked behind the wall. And the more that we build up that wall with continuing to put our ego forward, right? Like the other side of the story is, on the other side, he's like, I'm the king of the world, and he's like this warrior, character where he's embodying all this, power and control. And what's really happening is he's going off the rails, he's completely losing it. And he goes into this complete spiral, and it's such a beautiful work. Honestly, it's one of the premier works of art, of modern times, is that particular album. And if you aren't familiar with Pink Floyd The Wall, I highly recommend listening to it in its entirety and becoming familiar with it enough and watching the movie along with it. I was blessed to get to see Roger Waters perform it live in Tampa, Florida, on some years ago, and the performance, the stage performance, was absolutely unparalleled. The level of production was astounding, but the entire storyline is about vulnerability. It's about the story that we play out inside of our heads about the version of ourselves that we need to, or that we put forward as a result of the pain and the hurt that we've been through as children, right? So it's about having these painful occurrences in our childhood, and then starting to put up barriers because we don't want those soft spots touched, and then continuing to put up more and more and more barriers between us and the rest of the world, between us and everything else, until eventually us is just a discarded thing and isn't even part of reality anymore. And the version of us that's in front is a falsehood. It's an ego identity. I've seen this happen to my friends and lead them to suicide. It's been so devastating as an idea. So that vulnerability, that's the little opening of the door, and then peeking through and being able to get to the real you inside.
Totally. That big wall shows up so many different ways for folks. Like for me, for sure, that super high achiever, like good at people pleasing, perfectionist, like all those things are a version of what you just shared, like the version of the power, of the projection of strength, right? And those things are not necessarily untrue. It's more to say over-indexed and an avoidance of vulnerability, an avoidance of the soft side, having no spaces or people or relationships where we can access that. And I'm also speaking about relationship with self, right? How much do we allow ourselves to even consider and even look at the things that we feel vulnerable around? I was thinking in prep for this episode, what is some guidance that people could take? Well, okay, I want to start being vulnerable. I don't even know what that is. Where do I go? Like that question alone is vulnerable, just being acknowledging of being unsure how to quote unquote do something. But I was thinking, where have we felt embarrassed? Where have we felt shame, guilt? Like I mentioned just briefly before, where are we feeling joyful? And what dreams do we have? What deeper desires do we have that we haven't yet reached? Like there's vulnerability tendrils in every direction. You know what I mean? Pretty much. Usually when we're talking about vulnerability, the conversation tends to slant toward the healing side of things of what is that deeper pain point that we haven't necessarily loved? What does our inner child feel? Why does she want to cry? Why does she want to hide? Why is she so mad at that person? You know what I mean? Like those questions get into that deeper sort of pain point stuff. And the other side of exploring our desires and our dreams is it's just as vulnerable to say, I really want something, and for me, a piece, I mean, you guys, if you've been listening to the show long enough, you know that a big part of that for me a long time was in love relationships and having to be like really vulnerably be like, I want a partner, like I want a person to be with, to share life with, to love me, like that. Oof, whoa, like that's been extremely vulnerable for me for a long time. I'm just sharing about it now. I feel peace and calm in my body, but I very vividly remember even the mere thought to share it either on the podcast or in some other public forum would feel still so embarrassing to me. Like, why haven't I figured that out? What's wrong with me? So that was like a really long term and, I'm still in it, of course, but it's been a long term uncovering and gentle touching of this thing that was very painful and scary to me so that I could grow with it and love it enough that it could slowly heal and over time. You know what I mean? The sponsor of today's episode is Great Spirit Farm. Yes. Love having Great Spirit Farm with us, and specifically their Ayahuasca microdose tincture. It is a natural MAOI antidepressant and anti-anxiety. Great Spirit Farm describes the feeling as a warm hug. It can help you access deep creativity, flow, intuition, and improve vivid dream recall, which actually has totally been my experience.
So what is exactly in the bottle is the ayahuasca vine itself. So this is a tincture extraction, double extraction tincture that contains the Banisteriopsis caapi vine. Now, the particular vine that this has been extracted from has been growing in Florida now for over 25 years. And the ayahuasca vine does not contain DMT, so that makes this tincture 100% legal in all 50 states.
Yeah, Great Spirit Farm recommends starting with 1 to 3 dropperfuls and increasing your dose gradually from there until you feel the effects. There are no known contradictions with antidepressants, and always check with your doctor and only take as directed.
And what's really great about what Great Spirit Farm is doing is they're making sure that 10% of all the sales are returned to the Shipibo tribe, honoring the medicine's indigenous roots with active reciprocity. Now, if you want to try this tincture out for yourself, you can go to the website that is ayadose.com, AYADOSE.com, and you can enter our discount code TTJ10 to get 10% off your order. Again, that's ayadose.com and all caps TTJ10 to get 10% off your order. Totally. You know what you said there? One of the things that you said that was really powerful acknowledgement is you touched on a couple of different reactions that we could present if we are approached in one of our vulnerable areas. You talked about wanting to hide or wanting to fight, right? And these are fight or flight responses. And this is a great example of how we can identify triggered areas within ourselves, and how we can learn to be vulnerable based on recognizing our own triggers. So for me, as an example, like I would have certain things where I wouldn't know why, but say my partner or family member would say something, or a topic would come up, or a certain thing, and all of a sudden I would be angry, right? And I would have an anger response. And that is a clue. That's a trigger. Why am I suddenly angry? There's something that, that shouldn't really have, it's not like somebody's attacking me like they're going to fight me. I don't have a reason to be angry, but something inside me has a memory that is triggering an anger response. And that's a time where my own reflection can turn inward, and that could be fight or flight, right? It could be anger, or it could be run and hide, or it could be fawn, or whatever one of those fight or flight responses. And turning and pausing for a second and going, whoa, what? I just got angry. Like noting our own self state and recognizing, why did I just spiked in that? What's in there? And just pausing from the outside world for a second and going back inward and going, all right, I got angry. Something about what was said or came up caused me to get angry. Now I need to try to just soften a bit and just let myself go, what's that really related to? Because this is one of those things, love relationships, a great example, where we have an intimate relationship when we know somebody well, or when somebody knows us well, and well enough that we feel comfortable to just talk about whatever.
Yeah.
And something that shouldn't trigger a response does, right? This is where we really get the opportunity to go the layer deeper and figure out why, because it's not about putting the trash out. So if I get angry because you're like, hey, you didn't put the trash out, it's not it, right? It's not the trash that I'm angry about. It's some other thing in the dynamic of our relationship and communication. And what's missing is the layer of vulnerability, the weakness, the place, the door, the little place where we can get access to the other part that's actually what we're not saying, which is causing that fight or flight or that reactive type of response. So the vulnerability is the key to getting past that initial layer of defense for whatever childhood reason got put up to some other part of us that really wants to be seen or heard in whatever that circumstance is. And it's usually something simple. It's just like, I'm tired, or I'm overworked, or I'm putting so much of myself out right now. I don't have much left to give. And now you're giving me a hard time for not putting out the trash. And it's not about the trash. It's I'm really tired, and I need to be held. I need to be given some space to rest, simple. Sometimes it's just so simple like that.
Yeah. And you keep talking about parts, and I love always getting to just reiterate IFS, internal family systems therapeutic. That therapeutic approach is worth looking up as well. It's called internal family systems, otherwise known as parts work. But more broadly, this is why having a therapist helps, is that if we don't know, per the part of the discussion earlier, if we don't know who is a quote unquote safe person to open and deepen our vulnerability with, then we can do that in a professional space. That's what those professionals are there for. They are the safe container for us to start to explore what, quote unquote, being vulnerable, speaking vulnerably, allowing ourselves to be seen, allowing ourselves to express emotion and be witnessed for that, which can feel very terrifying for a lot of folks as well, totally understandably. All of that is okay, that's what it actually is ooh, how do I do it, and where can I quote, and I'd say do, and I'm air quoting it with my, my bunny ear fingers here, because of course, it's that softening, it's that knowing ourselves, it's that allowing what's true, like we said before. But to support ourselves into that experience that becomes the gift that you were speaking about earlier, Jay, I think we have to also support ourselves through the vulnerable part of, I don't know how to do that. Help, help. Asking for help is also really vulnerable for so
Totally.
many,
Yeah.
There's just so much in it that's beautiful if we begin to look at it as such. You know what I mean? Like you said, masculine understanding and perspective historically has been vulnerability is weakness. And you're working to reframe that in a beautiful way. And so that's something to invite others into around for whatever reasons or whatever ideas they might have around vulnerability that they just haven't considered, they haven't thought about. For me, it evolved into this practice, this mental emotional practice, mindset practice in large part is one of the things that I worked on for a long time, is really accepting my humanity, like practicing in my own head, validating, like acknowledging and validating myself for when I was a quote unquote human. For me, that was mostly like when I'm fucking up or when I'm doing something that made me feel dumb or when I'm doing something I thought I could do better and I'm beating myself up. Like those, working with that and validating those sort of more harsh and unkind and stricter voices to soften, right? To soften. And that practice for me was, it's totally understandable. You're a human. Like it's okay to be a human. I love you and accept you for your full humanity, which includes the messiness of screwing up and trying and failing and all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. The human journey. Sometimes it is such a dichotomy, right? Like there are times on this journey when I am just awestruck with just awestruck, just unable to fathom the beauty of it all, just the fantastical nature of the universe and its entirety. All right. It just completely dumbfounds me. And there are times when I just go, what the fuck? Right? Like how fucking shitty can this be? How hard can this be? And so it's so polarized, right? Like it's just so polarized, the yin yang symbol of those two swirling worlds, with the core at the center being polarized, opposing each other. And just, that there's so much pain, there's so much struggle, there's so much grief, there's just so much hardship. And then parallel to that, there's so much peace and joy and laughter and happiness and connection and love and just freaking amazing, right? And these two things are just so big and so much, and how the hell are we supposed to navigate all this? Like there's no freaking instructions.
Yeah.
There's no instructions like in the book. We got to figure it out,
One of the things that percolated in my mind was, without that love, that self-love practice, that accepting of my own humanity over time, iterating, getting reps on all the times I have, like that, there's no way I could do the big things that I do in the world, the big goals that I have, the creative projects that I do, putting myself out there in this way and other ways, and just living into my fullness, my full potential, right? That just the expansiveness of my own life in this life. There's no way I could do that without that underlying effort and foundation that I've built on that self-love and that understanding and accepting of my humanity and being a failure sometimes. And I say, being a failure, I mean like just failing, screwing up, like having pain, being messy. I couldn't do all the big things without that because it would be too scary. It would just be too scary. And so I think a big part of vulnerability is really like making peace with, but also almost desiring to build those skills around fear. You know what I mean? Around what that feels like in your body, and really genuinely, slowly over time and iteration and chosen experience, mind you, that word is deliberate, to have experiences that help us take that fear from like way up here, like slice it off, slice it off, slice it off, slice it off. And obviously it's not one direction. It's not like suddenly I'm not afraid of anything, but it's more like I'm not as afraid of fear itself now because I've been in it a lot, because I've chosen into it a lot. I've chosen into vulnerability a lot. And to your point, the spoils of that effort is I get to do more things in my life and feel safer doing that, feel more free, feel less afraid of it not working out for whatever reason. And I also get the spoils and the joy of that deeper connection, of feeling actually seen, actually known, actually liberated from that wall of that I was formerly hidden behind.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've really seen that in you too.
Thank you.
It's been very, very obvious growth and development in your journey.
Thank you.
I want to applaud you for that.
Thank you, my friend.
You were touching on something there, and as you were speaking, my mind was already like 3 steps ahead, and I'm like, oh yeah,
it happens.
I know where this is going, and it was the part about failure, and this. I want to kind of go into this kind of idea of the way that we experience taking risk and failing or succeeding, and our perceptions and kind of the way that we raise our children to their own life experience in the world. And I'll reflect a little bit on something else you were saying there. So I'm going to kind of go diverge into a couple topics here for a second.
Right.
One of them is, if you know anything about me, you know that I've been a very courageous person, right? Like I have taken incredible risks to my own physical life through my journey in skydiving and base jumping and paragliding and motorcycles and long distance adventuring and Arctic exploring and diving and surfing and you name it, right? And psychedelic drugs, for that matter, right?
Yep.
And so fear has become a very important ally to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Same.
Fear and bravery, right? Fear and bravery are like two spirit entities that go with me everywhere that I go. Right.
Yep.
And fear holds a powerful position that he deserves. Right. He is a very good reason for being there. And so does bravery. Right? Or courage, another way to say the same thing. Both of these archetypes walk with me to any experience that I'm approaching or is approaching me. And they both inform me at a certain amount with a certain voice, right? And as an older person now, it's much easier to be tempered with how I push or pull or receive or present either one of those voices. As a younger man, I might have been more egotistical, more overconfident, and push forward with bravery or courage, when fear maybe should have had a little bit more respect. Right. I should have probably listened to fear a little bit more. And at the same time, learning to pull fear's voice back and say, hey, thank you. I respect you. I understand what you're doing here and you're valued, but we're going forward with this, and bravery and courage we're holding hands, and fear, you're taking one step back.
Yeah.
Right. And so learning to navigate this journey, I think, is one of life's biggest lessons, is how do we navigate this balance of fear? And now I'm going to step backwards to that other part of the story about how we're raised and about failure, right? So one of the things, for an example, being a pro athlete for such a long time, people would have an expectation on me to perform. And I would oftentimes be heading up to go make a jump, and there's a crowd forming outside to watch me perform. And this would be in a training environment, right? So I don't have in a training environment, I'm there to develop my skill set, right? But I'm performing in front of an audience. And one of the things about training is, if you're not pushing your boundary beyond the point of failure, you're not going to grow and develop.
Yeah.
Right? You are going to stay exactly where you are. So you have to be willing to push to the point where you make mistakes and you do not perform within this idea of how I do well. Right?
Oh,
so
true.
Failure is the key to growth. Okay. And so I would go up and I would make a jump, and I would give everything 110%. And I say 110 because I give too much. I give too much that I can't keep it in control. It's not precise. I do not achieve the goal. I miss the target, and I perceivably fail in front of that audience. And everybody kind of stands there and they go, huh, there's no applause. There's no cheer, and so there's this odd relationship with audience expectation, which is also our own internal audience expectation, or our parents or our loved ones or whatever, fill in the blank audience, right? Our own expectations of performance and what it means to truly be vulnerable. So this is another version of vulnerability, is the willingness to fail,
Yes.
So, and now I'm going to take this back a step further, and I think about kind of like the participation medal kind of ideal, right? And I have some powerful thoughts here that, these are my opinions. I think there's a time and a place for participation medals where children are recognized for the effort that they make. But I think that it's very important. It is crucially important that when we're raising children, that there is a time where children are allowed to fail.
Yeah.
And to not be rewarded for the failure, to just accept it as a failure and say, okay, I did not achieve what I was aiming to do. This is life. The next time I will try again. I'll try harder. I still might not achieve it, but I will get up and I will dust myself off and I will try it again. And I think that there's something that I've seen happen in the world where this kind of we always need to pander to this softness of it's okay. It's okay. No, there's no winners. There's no losers. To me, this is not going to achieve growth and strength and courage and bravery in a growing human, right? And I see this, whether it's in young children or adolescents or teenagers, it becomes more and more crucially important to be able to be willing to take the risk of looking like a fool, right? In front of you got to be willing to look like a fool. You've got to be willing to just flail it and just lose. If you're not willing to lose, then you're never going to win, right? You have to be willing to give everything you have and get nothing back in order to get to the one time where you give it all and you achieve your dreams.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
For real, because it's like the humiliation is such a vulnerable place. And I mention that word a lot because it's very main thread in my existence also, which is another reason why I've worked to be seen and to bring that fear down for myself also. But yeah, man, it's very powerful when what you're talking about is, and we've mentioned it already on this episode, reframing some of the ways we think about these things, right? Sarah Blakely, she's the founder of Spanx. She's a very successful businesswoman, entrepreneur. She's an amazing person from what I have seen of all the things that she's shared. I'm a big fan of hers. I highly recommend you follow her stuff. Why I bring her up is she shared a story the other day about how her dad at the table would ask her and her brother, "What did you fail at today?" And that when they didn't have an answer for him, then he would be disappointed.
Nice.
Right? So it was like she was saying, I didn't realize it at the time, but my dad was reframing the perception of failure for me. And mind you, she went on, her story of how she founded Spanx is absolutely fucking unreal. It's beautiful and super cool. Talk about putting yourself out there, being willing to fail, not knowing how to make a product or a thing and not knowing who to talk to, but going out and taking a woman to the bathroom and showing her under her pants what the thing looked like. All this stuff that she did to like believe in her idea because she had this embedded, earned, like, you know, from a young age, this knowledge that failure wasn't something to be afraid of, that it was something to be embraced. And so that when we're talking about transforming vulnerability, so it's not just because if we're like, yeah, we're talking about be vulnerable, but why? You said it before, all these things, we get deeper connection, we get this, we get this, we get this. But a lot of it is, it frees us from the shackles of fear. You know, it frees us from the shackles of the limiting beliefs that keep us in a certain place or at a certain level of radiance and willingness to be in the world. So, yeah, I have opinions too.
You know, I was just thinking about the whole achieving goals idea there. And I was thinking about my Appalachian Trail experience, which it's a wonderful example to use because it's such a huge goal. It's such a huge commitment of time and energy. There's so many potential ways for it to fail. There's just all kinds of risk. It's really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
Right? It's a really hard, long game journey. And I was thinking about it is like, the goal is to go from the start to the end, right? And the first step that you make, you don't get to the end. You're like, failure.
Yeah.
Right? That was a failure. Right. I didn't get to the end. Right?
My first step of failure.
Yeah. Well, this is the reality of it, right? Like if we frame things so weird, right? Because literally we're like, okay, I'm going to go to the end of this trail. And you're like, well, I'll just take a step and I'll be at the end. You know, like it's a one step thing, beginning, end, right? Like start, end. And you take one step, it doesn't do it. So that one's a failure. Take another step, that one's a failure. Take another step, that one's a failure. So basically you end up with 5,999,000 steps that are failures and one step that gets you to your goal, right? So this is the thing, is that this brings us back to the title of this freaking show, which is the trust the journey mentality, which is the journey is actually about all of these failed steps, right? Because the journey isn't that last step that finishes, puts you on the top of the mountain and reaches the goal. That's not the journey. That's one fraction of the journey. The journey is every single failure on the way there. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's vulnerability, is knowing that every single one of these things is not going to, in its entirety, this thing I'm doing right now isn't going to get me there.
Yeah.
It's not. It isn't. It's going to be a piece of it. And some of them are going to go in the wrong direction. Some of them are going to actually hurt you, like physically hurt you. You got to twist your ankle or break your knee, right? Some of them are just going to get covered in mud. Like, there's a million different analogies to use in this description. And that's why I just think it's so beautiful. Is in like, it's literally 5,999,999 failures and one step, which is the winning step.
Yeah.
You know? And
totally.
all of that is vulnerable. That's
Yes.
vulnerable, is just being on that and every day. And so pull it back to conversation, pull it back to how I connect with my family, how I connect with my friends. And some of these conversations I've had recently with some of my first circle friends, where get on the phone and I was like, hey, how you doing? You know, like kind of just get that initial check-in. And then there's like kind of a pause of like nothing to say. Because we don't really know what we need to connect about, but we know we need to connect.
Yeah.
I know I need to be on the phone with Mel or with Jamie or with Jackson. I got to be on the phone. We just got to hang out a bit, you know, we got to connect. And we've got to leave that space, that softness, that like, if there's a pause, anything like that, the awkward silence kind of thing, it's not awkward.
Yeah.
It's softening the edges enough for that vulnerable piece that needs to be shared to actually have room to be able to enter the room. Right? Right?
I love that you brought this up, because that's such a nuanced detail of how it occurs that people wouldn't necessarily think about otherwise. I wouldn't have thought about it. But now that you've put words to it, I'm like, yes, that is so true.
Sometimes it's like 30 seconds of silence on the phone, and you're just sitting there on the other side of the phone, just waiting for who's going to say something, you know? And then the next thing you know, something that you need to say comes up, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That washes over my body like an energetic, just like warmth. Good. It's really good. Oh my gosh.
I'd like to take this opportunity here to encourage our audience to join us in our integration circles.
Yeah.
We host them once a month, and they are a powerful space that is held in confidentiality with which to practice this skill.
Yeah.
To observe people being vulnerable and to practice our own sharing vulnerability.
Yeah.
So if you want to join us and participate in one of our integration circles, you can go to trustthejourney.today and you can click on integration. There's a tab button right on the top, or you can scroll down and hit the buy now, or you can become a regular subscriber on Patreon, which will get you into every single month. So you could try it out once if you want to do a single one and see how you like it, or you can go on Patreon and become a regular subscriber. And that also gets you on the Trust the Journey family Facebook page, which is a great place. And my gosh, some of the vulnerable shares in there are just heart openers. I love when our family takes the time to say, sit down and type something out, including pictures or not, sharing their hardships or their growths or what they're going through. And we've had such beautiful, beautiful connections develop, and the friendships that are growing out of that family circle as a result are truly inspiring. And I'm grateful for the deepening of friendships that I'm getting out of it. It's fantastic.
Same. Oh my God. It makes me think of that night when I basically got the news that Sarah, my friend that I lived with for so long, I know I've shared this on the show before.
You were so upset. I remember you were just devastated.
It was such an interesting experience because my emotions were not something, I didn't know what they fully were yet. So like for me to be able to, for me as someone who's one of the like holders of the space, to know that I could come into that space with you also there holding, and basically the safety of the container that we have there and the folks that are a part of it that are committed to that safety and that holding and loving and supporting and encouraging of each other. It was interesting because it really was one of those experiences for me where I couldn't not, like, the emotion was not, even if I tried to hold it in, it was it had just happened. And so it was very, very raw and real. Like, I just had to cry. And I felt like it was a gift to have it weirdly happen at that quote unquote very wrong time when I'm supposed to be facilitating a group, right? But it was obviously a gift for me to be seen vulnerably, held vulnerably in that way, in that moment, in that very real moment in my life, a huge, huge transition moment in my life. But also to know, like, fuck, if any space is going to hold this, it's this one, you know? And I just sort of surrendered, and I didn't try to have that wall hold those tears in. I kind of did at first when I first get in there, just to be respectful. But at the same time, started talking and they just came out, and that's okay.
And I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for being open to sharing that here. That's vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Literally sharing, I totally broke down in front of my group that I'm supposed to be the host of and melted down in front of everybody. That's vulnerability right there. and I remember it so vividly because it was so real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I can feel your emotional state, and that what you needed was, in that human experience, was other humans to witness your emotional experience that was occurring, just to be seen, just to be in a safe place, to be seen going through a painful experience. And it felt honoring. Like, from the other side, it didn't feel like the host of the call is having an emotional breakdown.
Yep.
It felt like I have a real friend here.
Yeah.
Who's being real with me.
Yeah.
Who's going through pain right now, and sharing that without a filter. And that feels like connection. That feels like friendship. That feels like family.
Yep. Coats my eyes with beautiful, grateful tears of love, even now, because that's what it is to me. It's love. It's a version of love. Like, how can we ever be loved truly, be known truly, if we are not willing to be seen truly and to share truly? And this is sort of a hardcore ask. You know what I mean? It's not fun to cry in front of people. Even my closest people, even getting on the phone with Shannon, my best friend who knows everything about me, every single thing about me. And it feels uncomfortable to start crying in front of her, Yep. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But I do it anyway.
Well, I was just thinking about one of the ceremonies that I went to last year and processing some grief that had been buried for 30 years, grief that was still holding, that had never really had a chance to be expressed, and how that participating in that space, in that sacred, safe space with those people, had created a container for me to be able to access grief that had been buried for 30 years and allow that to come out. And the powerful, like, sitting up, holding my knees, sobbing into my arms, just like the uncontrollable, just heaving, sobbing, crying, pouring out, and knowing that I was in a space where that's what that space is for. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's we've talked about that too a lot, but ceremony and how much that those containers have helped me access depths of vulnerability, to your point exactly, that I wonder if I would ever be able to reach in the containers that exist in my normal day-to-day life, even the ones that I have cultivated, right? Like I wonder, I imagine over time, maybe, but what you just described, like versions of expression of sadness and grief that I've experienced as well in ceremonial settings, I wonder what other containers or relationships I could access that level and depth. I don't know if I could. I haven't. I'm not sure.
I kind of see it like a rainbow, right? You can see the chakras there behind me, right? Like the spectrum, right? And then like each space has its own special warmth or tone to it, right? And different spaces, like therapy's freaking great, right? Getting to be seen, being able to be vulnerable in a safe space with one other person, or in group therapy with but it's not necessarily going to get me to that spot. You know, like that big grief expression isn't going to come through for me in that therapeutic setting. And so, you know, maybe one of those is, you know, a deep connection with a single person. Maybe one of these is a connection with a professional therapist. Maybe one of these is a deep connection with ourselves in nature, you know, of being alone. Maybe one of these is with our soulmate or a partner or a loved one. Maybe another one of these is families, right? Or social groups or communities, right? And maybe another one of these is our spirituality, where we're connecting with our souls. What is our ceremonial space where we're having our soul connection, you know? And there's all these different frequencies. There's all these different types of containers. Each of them is going to offer different ways for us to lean into this practice of vulnerability. And I can speak for Melanie with complete confidence here that we encourage you.
Yes.
We encourage you to do so.
Yeah. I love that. Is the perfect kind of place to round out today's conversation. I will say again, the truth in what you just shared is coded on my eyes in like tears of recognition. You know, like I don't feel a sadness. I feel a gratitude for kind of knowing in a way how to do it, you know, and and grateful that I have spaces to have this. Like it's that important. It's that healing. It's that transformative that I'm just like, oh, I really hope for any of you guys listening, let us know like what part of this resonated the most for you. Like, is there a thing that you're pulling out of this conversation that you're going to go more toward, or that you're like, yeah, that works for me too, or anything like this thread of conversation is that rich and that good. So anyway, I love you all. Jason, I love you.
I love you too,
I love everyone. And yes,
vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness.
Yes, it is.
The power of vulnerability. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.